The Almighty is. The Almighty has always been. The Almighty will forever be. The Almighty has made all that is, the heavens and the depths, the elements, the creatures and the beings, and all are His. Great and mysterious are His ways. In the days long before our people were given life, He made the undying ones in the upper realm, each to bear a gift of His nature. The Montes to bear His wisdom and knowledge, the Lacus to bear His loyalty and honor, and the Roba to bear His strength. To each of these, the Almighty gave a precious gem, instilled with the essence of the gift. There was harmony and peace, plenty and rest, and none feared the bitter taste of death. But ambition grew in the heart of Kaunai, the greatest of the Roba. He loved the power of his strength so much that he began to seek power beyond what the Almighty had given him. Convinced his Creator was withholding from him, Kaunai began to despise the Almighty. Kaunai's bitterness and hate birthed a new magic, the dark magic, and he conjured a weapon to wield it, the Bident of Kaunai. Kaunai soon challenged the Almighty to a great battle, leading the Roba people in his rebellion. The Montes and the Lacus, faithful to the Almighty, fought alongside their Creator. The heavens shook, and the depths were torn asunder. The animals scattered, now terrified of their masters. The seas roiled, the land splintered. In the end, the Almighty and the faithful overcame Kaunai and the Roba. But like a disease, the dark magic had already spread. Knowing that he could not extinguish his undying ones, the Almighty created the Shadow Realm. There, he banished Kaunai and the Roba. His betrayers would never stand in the glory of the Upper Realm again. And though the Montes and the Lacus had been faithful, the Almighty knew he must act. Even now, the Montes were becoming prideful of their wisdom, and so he created another realm, the Baransu realm. There, he sent the Montes, transforming them into giants to fit the size of their pride. And because the Lacus stayed true to their honorable, loyal nature, the Almighty made them guardians of the door between the Shadow Realm and the Baransu realm. From their new dwelling at the bottom of Lake Shamakai in Baransu, the Lacus would make certain those banished to the Shadow Realm could never breach the door. Grieved by the undying ones, the Almighty wanted to begin again. He created and placed a new people in the Baransu realm, the Novus people. No divine wisdom or might, not even loyalty inborn. No, they would have their own will, to choose as they wished and to seek their own paths. Their choices would bring life eternal, or never-ending death. The Almighty wished to walk closely with his new creation, so he descended to Baransu in human form, concealing his identity. He wanted to teach the Novus how to wield his power and to watch over his dominion. For years, the Almighty trained and prepared Sensei Merkai, a man of pure heart, and his brother, Turkan, driven and strong-willed. At last, the Almighty took them to the Upper Realm to show them the origin of their creation, and to reveal his true nature and power. But even as the Almighty took the brothers further and further into his confidence, Turkan began to hear a faint whisper, a whisper that there was more, that the Almighty would withhold power and glory from him. The whisper grew louder and more insistent, until one day, Turkan tried to find its source. It led him to a place he'd never seen before, a dark fortress. It seemed to be waiting for him. As he approached, the whisper beckoned him, assuring him that his true destiny was within. At last, he found its source in a dark, hidden chamber, the Bident of Kaunai. Knowing of its power from legend, Turkhan immediately took it up, and the intoxication of the dark magic entered his heart. Turkhan used the Bident to transport himself back to the Baransu realm. And now, transformed by the dark magic and drunk with his new power, he brought a wave of terror and suffering everywhere his shadow darkened. For centuries, he laid waste to the land and the people, turning his victims into mindless beasts of his bidding. Our people now called him Tenebris, which means darkness comes. But after Tenebris took up the Bident of Kanai, the Almighty forged a weapon that could hold him at bay and would one day bring restoration and peace to the realm. The Staff of the Almighty. He chose Sensei Merkai and his Lightwalker clan to be the keepers of the staff, so long as they would walk with him and follow his way. The Almighty also bestowed upon the Lightwalker clan a gemstone. Like those given by the Almighty to the Undying Ones, this precious stone would reveal the truth of his nature and goodwill to all the people, for those who would seek to know. And so, Sensei Merkai made a vow that the Lightwalkers would protect his creation and bring harmony to the realms. We have kept that vow, and the staff and its sacred charge has been handed down from generation to generation. It has been said, when the days reach their darkest, the Almighty will choose again a number of his faithful and train them to wield his very power. Their path will be through fire, and their burden crushing. Our people have longed for the day of rescue from Tenebris' scourge, the day when all will be set right. But the wise know there is more to defeat than Tenebris and his horde. We have all heard the whisper, and in our weakness danced with the dark magic. Invited, the darkness creeps in, plotting against us. The greatest battle may yet be mastery of the foe within, and the day of that conquest, or defeat, will be like none other. That day when we, by the Almighty's power, will overcome and be free once again, or slip into the chasm of death unending.